Welcome to the Vet Med Wellness and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss central challenges vet med leaders face, such as burnout, stress, and difficult interactions with clients and staff, just to name a few. In each episode, you will hear about actionable solutions that you can apply to your practice and invitations to connect with fellow leaders who are passionate about improving the wellness of the vet med profession. By subscribing, liking, commenting, or sharing this podcast, you are helping more veterinary professionals find the resources shared in these episodes. Thank you in advance for listening and supporting this show. I hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, Crystal here, and I am excited to introduce you all to Cindy Trice. Dr. Cindy Trice. So she is the founder of Relief Rover. And today we're going to be talking about her path as a veterinarian, how Relief Rover came to be, and how relief work can really be more than we think it is for both veterinarians as well as the hospitals that are seeking relief work. So Cindy, let's go ahead and start off today with tell us more about yourself. I thought maybe we could start with your journey, before Relief Rover even existed, and what you were experiencing that other veterinarians listening to this may also be experiencing now.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I love talking about this profession because I love this profession and love talking about relief practice. So my journey, I'm a 2004 UC Davis grad, and I have spent almost the entirety of my career as a relief professional. I have been an intern 1.5 times. I have been an associate twice at the same practice. And then the rest of the time I've worked GP, shelter, ER, mobile, did a little bit of telehealth. So just really kind of a professional sampler in the industry. But so after graduation, I did an internship and ended up having to drop out. So I went to work as an associate at a multi-doctor practice. It was a great practice. I was one of those vets that was lucky and got into a practice where I had great mentorship. I don't know that everyone is always that lucky, where the practices actually have the time and the interest in mentoring their new grads, but I did. I was lucky, and I had done a half internship. So it bugged me that I didn't finish that internship. So I went back and I completed it. And then it was after that I got started doing some relief work.
And what led you to be interested in relief work? I think because it's something that when I speak to especially younger veterinarians, like new graduates are kind of still green, I don't think they have this even on their radar as an option. So what led you to be interested in it? How did you even know it existed? Actually, can we define it? Because I don't even know if some people might be like, what the heck is relief work?
That is true. Some people might not know. So relief, and I don't know why this is the case, but I actually like the word relief. In the veterinary community, we call it relief work. In every other community in the States or even in the veterinary communities abroad, it's called locum tenens. Which is basically where you fill in. So I come in as a veterinarian and I fill in for either a practice owner or an associate. Maybe they're on vacation. Maybe they're out sick. Maybe the practice just has an increase in demand. And so they need an extra person to come in and help see their clients. So that's what a relief vet is. And I learned about being a relief vet before vet school. I was working as a customer service rep at one doctor practice in San Francisco, and he was gone. And this relief vet came in, and I remember she rode up on her bike, and she came in. She handled the day. She wasn't super friendly at all. She just came in, did her job, and rode off on her bike. And I remember being like, "Oh, that's cool. That's a cool job. That's just a cool way to do work." And so that was my first introduction to being a relief vet. But I kind of forgot about it. It didn't occur to me. But after I got out of that internship, the second time I was faced with a decision. I could have gone back to my other job. They were willing to welcome me back, but I was kind of nosy. I just wanted to see what else was out there. I loved that practice. Like I said, I had great mentorship. But I was curious. I knew that there were lots of different ways to practice, and I wanted to see what those were. So I really did it more out of curiosity. And I didn't, frankly, think of it as a career choice. I just thought I was just like, I don't know, hustling shifts, right? Like just coming in, doing my thing, kind of like that vet, right? I think I was a little more friendly because I just like people. So I have no problem being friendly, but I just would kind of fly in, do my job, fly out.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my first introduction to relief practice.
Okay. And how did you go from there to then starting your own company that is now like this entity that exists on its own? How did you bridge that gap?
So I then I was working at my old practice as a relief vet. And they were like, hey, will you stay? Will you stay on as an associate? And prior to that, my husband and I had been spending 6 months out of the year in Florida and 6 months out of the year in Montana, which relief practice worked perfectly for that. And that was partly due to a job that he had at a photography school. So that opportunity came to an end. So we knew we would be staying in Florida. So I agreed to go back as an associate. I was like, all right, well, maybe I'm done kind of wandering around. And so I stayed at that practice for 4.5 years. That was where I started to experience what I think a lot of vets are experiencing, either have experienced or are currently experiencing, where I just got fried, completely burnt. I was in a place where I was thinking of all sorts of reasons, like hoping things would happen so I didn't have to go to work. Just kind of crazy thoughts. And I would come home from work and I literally couldn't speak. And I know there are veterinarians who will understand this. I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk to my husband. I didn't pet my dogs. I didn't do anything. I sat on the couch. I didn't want to watch TV. I just stared into space. I had spent every ounce of what I had at the clinic. And it was crazy. And this was before COVID, before things got as crazy as they are now. It was a very busy practice, and it was not uncommon for me to be there from 7:30, 8 in the morning until 9 or sometimes 10 o'clock at night. And on a consistent basis, trying to just get it all done and get it all done and get it all done. And so I burnt out. And so I went back to relief because I thought, well, actually, I was like, I'm done. I'm so done with this career. I'm like, I don't want to be a vet. I've changed careers before. I can do it again. And I went on this crazy search for other things.
Hold that thought. Because right now, I think there are people, right, that are maybe in that zone you're just describing of burned out, can barely, like, I can't speak at the end of the day. I'm having these very irrational thoughts. Like, I hope something happens so I don't have to go into work tomorrow. And this feeling, I remember when you and I talked offline too, a sense of like, this is not me. Like, this is not my nature to feel this way and to think this way. I'm wondering if we can just say a little more about that space where, how do I articulate this? I often watch people, they're in that struggle zone, rationalize staying stuck, instead of thinking, well, what changes could I make? Like you're through it now. So you're able to say, well, I thought maybe I'll just quit and I'll just stop being a veterinarian and I'll just do something totally different. Do you remember how you shifted from being burned out and stuck and not feeling like you could make a change to talking to yourself in a way that allowed you to seek new solutions? Does that question make sense?
It does. And I think, if I think back to, because I did sometimes wonder like, how to get like this, because I love being a vet and I'm a people person. So, even the clients who can sometimes not be so kind to us, it was my specialty to come in and take care of those clients and shift their mindset. Like it was a challenge to me that I kind of loved. And so it surprised me that I was able to get burnt out, right? Like it shouldn't surprise me in retrospect, but it did because I thought, you know what? I'm a people person. I let things roll off my back. I'm not a super stressy type, with things like that. But I think it just crept up on me. I think you just can't work that hard. You just can't. You can't not take a break. And I think there was some like level of foolish toughness that I had about myself. Like I can power through. Mm-hmm. There was probably some ridiculous competitiveness with whom I don't know. I don't know who I was competing with. I wasn't really competing with my colleagues. I was the only non-owner in the practice. It was like self-competitive somehow. I'm not sure. It didn't make any sense, but somehow those were the things that kind of kept me going. Like, I can do this. And I didn't want to look like a wimp, right? Mm-hmm. Like I had this like argument with myself all the time. Like, oh, are you, don't be lazy. Don't be a wimp, just like bad self-talk. It's terrible.
I relate to this so much because I was like that too. In my younger years, like I'd say, early, mid to latish 20s, definitely had like that inner just whip cracker that was just always on me to like do more. For what reason? It was really illogical thinking, but at the time it was all I knew. And for me, getting like therapy and coaching and having mentors, they were like, hey, I don't think that's really a smart way to go about this, and have me think about things from a different perspective. That helped me get over the hump. But it sounds like you were able to shift this on your own. You really woke up and said, I need to make a change. And so let's keep going down that path of Relief Rover and how this, you found this niche of kind of going back to what you had originally done.
Yeah. So I just burnt myself to a crisp, and I told them I'm leaving. I gave them a really long time before I actually left. But I left. And then what did it for me? I'm quite sure I had clinical depression. I did not go to therapy. I did not seek any of those things. I do think those things probably would have been very good for me, and it would have been good for me to do that. But the facts are I didn't. How I pulled myself out of it, and this is often what helps me, is I just started doing other things that were completely unrelated to vet med. Now, I still needed to make money. So I was doing relief work because I couldn't afford to just quit, and do nothing. But I took a watercolor class. I signed up for this flash nonfiction writing course. I started doing another art class. I'm not an artist at all, at all. But that's why I did it. I did it because it just took my mind somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And it was doing all of those other things that had nothing to do with vet med that I felt like my mind started to heal. And then this is another thing that happened. I was like, I need to find my people. Because what was happening in vet med, I was going to all these practices and people were burnt and people were tired and people were complaining, understandably sometimes. And people were mad at the clients and people were mad at each other and all of these things. So I was like, I need to find the hopeful people. Where are the people that are hopeful about this profession? And I just at about that time, I got this email for the Veterinary Innovation Summit. And the word innovation just sparked a light in me. And I was like, okay, maybe this is where I'm going to find my people, at this innovation summit. And sure enough, I didn't know anybody. I went by myself it was at Texas A&M. It was the first one they had. And I met all of these people in the veterinary space, many of them veterinarians, technicians, people who had worked on the clinic floor, some of them not, some of them business people. But all of them were trying in their own way to solve these problems that we're having in our industry. And that was where I started to say, oh, what problem can I solve? What can I solve? And I thought, what do I know? I know about being a relief vet. And so that was kind of the first kernel of the idea for Relief Rover. And then the second thing that happened was I was kind of looking around and realizing that, oh, I'm actually a business to business service provider. How can I level up my game as a relief vet? I was realizing that this is actually a career choice. And I was looking around for resources for relief vets, and there were none other than regional staffing agencies. And then a single doctor practitioner in Truckee, California reached out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm sitting at my breakfast table in Florida, and she asked me to come cover her maternity leave. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. We have a half-hour phone conversation. A few months later, I'm packing my bags with my husband, throwing my dogs in the cart, and driving to California. And I thought to myself, this is a needle in a haystack. This is crazy that, this vet in California found a vet at her breakfast table in Florida to cover her maternity leave. And what I realized is that your pool of relief vets are not necessarily just the ones in your backyard, because I am not by a long shot the only relief vet who's willing to travel. So I basically combined all those ideas. I was like, relief vets need resources. Relief practice can be a career choice. And there's nothing out there that's nationwide. And that was how Relief Rover was born.
Oh, such a good story. Okay, now tell us about Relief Rover. Let's say I'm a veterinarian or a practice owner who needs a relief veterinarian. I'm a vet who may be considering doing relief work. Tell me more about your service and how it works, because your website is impressive. Like when you go on there, the resources you provide, the community you're creating. I really hope we can paint the picture verbally, but I also want to encourage people, please check this out, because I was really impressed with it.
So what Relief Rover is we are a community. So we're a platform that connects relief veterinarians and technicians to each other in a community. We also connect them to resources. So we have like an ebook that kind of helps you, like, how do you set this up? We have like a wage calculator. So we've created some resources to help you if you're starting out as a relief professional, like how do you set things up? We have discounts with partners. So because as relief vets, we're our own business. So there's no employer to pay for your PLUMS membership or your VetGirl membership or whatever membership you're part of. And so we have discounts for our members. And
then ask a question. If I'm a veterinarian and I want to join, is there a cost to be a member as a veterinarian, as a relief?
No, it's free for relief vets and techs. And then on the other side of our community are hospitals. So, or I should say employers, because it's not always just hospitals. It's mostly hospitals, but it can be, we've had telehealth companies. It's basically anyone who's looking for an independent contractor vet. So ERs, shelters, GP, telehealth. We've had companies who are looking for veterinary writers post jobs on there. So then the idea is that the vets can connect to jobs that are, searching for vets or techs. Also, the vets can put themselves forward. So we always say we're like a dating site. We're not a staffing agency at all. We're more like a dating site where the vet or the tech can present themselves to the employer if they want. They can remain hidden if they prefer that. And then the employer can present themselves to the vet and tech. Then you guys can meet and you can date if you want to date. You can get married if you want to get married. We are not involved in that part. We just want to introduce and help build healthy, productive business to business relationships.
And I also want to say what I liked on your website was that you had these like blog posts and just really informative articles that would, on so many different topics, just to say, for me as a, say, doctor or technician to look through the variety of posts that you had created. I also thought that's a really nice library of resources.
Yeah, we try. And we have this great team of writers. They're volunteer writers and they're relief vets and techs mostly. And because we wanted to share a lot of different voices, but there are great resources. You're right, on all sorts of topics from, mental health type things to medical type things to business, to just some kind of fun stuff like, why you should eat vegan ice cream, things like that. So we have all sorts of articles up there.
And I want you to speak more to, I don't know if the right word is mission, but maybe the mission, like why Relief Rover exists. Because I know in our previous conversation, that really landed with me. And I wanted to make sure that we had some time to highlight that.
Yeah, so our mission is to engage, empower, and elevate relief professionals for the benefit of the entire profession. Relief professionals are honestly like they're a lifeline in our industry. And now more than ever, they're a lifeline. And they need to be supported as a category of veterinarian. And there's all sorts of reasons people will want to be relief vets. It's not necessarily just to be a career relief vet. That is a great way to have a career for certain people. But people can use relief practice for all sorts of phases in their career. It can be a transition. It can be a way to take a break. It can be a way to explore and try new things out. It can be a way to shop for a place that you'd like to land. So, and it can be a place to build your own brand and your own business and curate exactly what you want to do on the clinic floor.
Oh, it's so neat. I wish I had met you like 6 months ago. So for me, I have an Airbnb off my house, and I especially market my Airbnb to animal people. So I say, all your animals are welcome, big and small, because when I've traveled with my pet, I often can't find an Airbnb that will accept even a cat. I'm like, come on, it's just a cat. But a lot of people say no. So I've met the most amazing people that have stayed here with their pets. And so about maybe 6 months ago, we had a pair that came and stayed. They were traveling relief vets. And so they were kind of going down from like Oregon all the way down the coast. And they were doing something here in California. So it was really nice to meet them. And they were traveling with their pets as well. And they said they really loved the lifestyle of it, that they would kind of work for a month and then maybe take a month off. And they got to just travel and see the world and try out different kinds of work with, different sizes of practices and different needs. And it was just really, I think it's really fulfilling to certain types of people who enjoy creativity or learning new things or have that urge, the curiosity factor. I think it can really satisfy that itch for people.
Yeah, it definitely, I think it takes a certain skill set and a certain personality type to enjoy that kind of relief practice where you're often going into a new place and you're often the new person. I am one of those people that's wired that way. Like my favorite day on a relief job is my first day in a new clinic because I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't, it's nerve wracking. It's not that there aren't some nerves that go along with it. But it's thrilling to me. It's thrilling to me to see how another place runs, to get to meet this new group of people, to kind of have to get a lay of the land and kind of have to quickly figure out, okay, what's the flow? Who's my go-to person? How can I leverage this team to get through the day? And how can we all work together to make this the best day possible for ourselves and for the patients that we're seeing?
Yes. I think it's really nice that we're talking about, the different types of people that may enjoy this. Because what I see sometimes when I work with professionals that are struggling, sometimes the pain point is that they have an idea of like a prescriptive model they're supposed to fit into. Like, this is the kind of doctor or technician I'm supposed to be. And since I'm not that, there's something wrong with me. And I say, oh, no. Actually, it's much more important to fully understand yourself and your style. Like for you, Cindy, it's obvious that you love to innovate. You like the newness of things. You like to do the quick start. You like the challenge of the immediacy. I think there are these elements that you've discovered about yourself. We can make a running tally of characteristics and attributes that describe you when you are doing what lights you up. And I think when people can define that for themselves and say, hey, this is the environment and the kind of work and the kind of engagement that really, it's my genius zone. This is where I thrive. And then look for opportunities that would align with that instead of trying to whittle yourself down to fit into some box that's really not you. I mean, that's why I'm here as an entrepreneur. Like, I love creating my own thing. I like driving my own ship. I think, you and I probably have similar archetypes inside of us of how we like to operate. And that's just good to know. And there are other people who would actually really love more structure and a more controlled environment and more set plans and maybe more long range relationships, or they might want to be super specialized and dive really deep and be very niche. And that's good to know. So I think spending that time to discover yourself and maybe find similar mentors and how they have architected their life to support their needs can just be so relaxing, like freeing and liberating to know that that's okay. It's okay to be you.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think, and even if you're not sure, because I didn't know if I would like relief practice until I did it. And I will say too, even though I did an internship and I did some ER at my internship, I didn't do ER for a really long time. And I would avoid ER shifts. I would only do GP for a while. And then one day I was like, you know what? Just try it. Just go do it. See what happens. And I went and I worked at, I made sure I worked at ERs where I wasn't the only vet, just to get myself comfortable. And I was like 10 years into my career at this point. So like, I had this weird, and I probably other vets can relate to this. I had this feeling like I should know. I should be good at this because I've been a vet for 10 years. Like, how could I not be good at an emergency coming in the door? But I didn't feel comfortable. And so relief practice was a great way for me to see, like, just to test it out, right? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, it turns out, oh, no, actually, you really don't like it, Cindy. But it turns out I actually really love it. And I was like, oh man, this was could have been my jam the whole time because I love ER so much. And now I still do GP, but I'm much more weighted towards ER because I found that that's what I love. But I wouldn't have figured that out necessarily without the opportunity to dabble in it as a relief vet. I also found that I love doing mobile practice. That's super fun.
See, isn't that so fascinating? I know two different veterinarians who, through their own journey, discovered that they really loved end of life care. So hospice and like in-home euthanasia, that they just love the depth and the meaning behind it and how it takes time and it's very relational. It's like, isn't that fascinating? Because I think about, for me, when I was a vet tech, I think that the euthanasia part was the most scary or difficult. Like, no, I don't want to do it ever. But to realize it's part of the practice. And there may be veterinarians and technicians and practice managers out there who really love that part of it and want to support that part of a animal's journey. I was like, there's something for everybody.
There is something for everyone. And I think a big message is here is you don't have to know right away because you might not know. How do we know what we like until we do it? And there is not just one way to be a vet. And even though school, and I think what you were talking about before reminds me of like the vet feeling kind of boxed in to one way of doing things, the way that they feel like they're supposed to. So this is what happens. You're in school and you get taught the gold standard way of doing things, right? And that word gold standard, thankfully, is falling out of favor. But like when I was in school, that was the thing, like gold standard, gold standard, gold standard. And then you get into practice and you admire your professors, right? You admire them. You look up to these people. They are who you want to be. And most of the time they're specialists, not always, but most of the time they're specialists. They may or may not have ever worked outside of an academic institution. So they may not actually have experience with what it's like to be a veterinarian in a general practice. Some of them did, but some of them didn't. And so you get out of school, you're in practice, and you feel like I have to do it this way. And if I don't do it this way, then I'm not living up to the expectations of my professors who told me that this is what it means to be a good vet. I'm not doing the right thing by these patients because I'm not able to do everything that I was taught to do. Mm-hmm. You're suddenly faced with the realities of quote unquote, the real world. And so you're constantly in an ethical dilemma because you have all these people you have to serve. You've got to serve the pet. You've got to serve the pet parent. You've got to serve the business, because a veterinary practice is a business, and you have to serve yourself. And serving those 4 entities do not always line up. And in fact, I would say often they don't line up. Mm-hmm. And so you're choosing, who am I going to serve the most? Like, how can I make a decision? But you're always going to be serving one of those parties more than the other. And I think that is what is exhausting. So and this is something I learned from being a relief vet and from working in so many different practices. I loved that I was able to learn tools and techniques and ways to communicate where I could, I love that this whole spectrum of care is what's being talked about now. I learned how to practice across this broad spectrum of care. And I don't struggle as much with those ethical dilemmas anymore. Mm-hmm. So I can go work at a emergency specialty center where there are specialists, and I can go work at a rural 1-doctor practice where I might not have as many resources. And I can, at either of those locations and anywhere in between, I can feel like, you know what? I am doing the best that I can. I'm taking care of these patients. They need this help. And it helped me remember that so much of being a veterinarian is your ability to take a good history and your ability to do a good physical exam. And the rest of it is just gravy, that you can do a lot. And we sometimes forget that.
Yeah. I love that you break it down like that. I'm doing a 2-part workshop. It starts tomorrow night with a veterinary hospital. It's like a corporate. So I'm helping the new graduates integrate, and it's about perfectionism and making mistakes. And you hear so much, and this is from doctors across their career, not just newbies, of that feeling of, I'm going to screw it up, and there's a right way to do it and a wrong way. And if I don't get the perfect diagnosis or the perfect medication, or have the right answer for the pet parent, it's going to be a disaster. It's a catastrophizing. And I'm doing this workshop to help them better understand how to work with this perfectionism and making mistakes, the fear of failing, because it's really, really difficult. And we have some wonderful evidence-based psychology tools that can help get through that and get to the other side. Because many people, it's like, oh, it took me 40 years to get over it. I'm like, no, let's get you past that quicker. Because it's really anxiety provoking in this profession. By the way, Kat Hexy, we're on audio right now, but she has joined the podcast and she is giving her silent cat greetings. Hello. Like I said, she comes to every episode. So as we're coming down the home stretch here, I think what might be helpful is to, if there are any other points you had not gotten to make when it comes to Relief Rover, I'm just sort of bringing it back home to anybody who may want to connect to really understand how Relief Rover works. I'm going to summarize by saying, as a veterinarian or technician, you can make a free profile. You can decide if you want to be visible or not. You can be behind the scenes, just scoping out the different job opportunities that are out there. You can connect with hospitals or people that are seeking relief work and start a conversation and start the matchmaking process. And then for practice managers or owners or those who are seeking relief veterinary or technicians, they can go on there and make a profile and join the community and start connecting with people that are out there able to do relief work. Is there anything else that you'd want to say in summary? And also definitely give people the information on how they can find you.
I did want to bring up one thing that I alluded to earlier, but wanted to drive the point home a little more, because I think that this is happening more and more. So Relief Rover was designed for relief vets. And I originally designed it for people who wanted to be career relief vets like myself. However, what we've learned, we welcome anyone on the community. And one thing I've learned that I think is actually truly heartening, both for the veterinary professionals and also for the hospitals, is there is a new trend. And that is that people are using relief practice as a try before you buy approach. And I compare it to a dating site. You would never, well, maybe you would, but most people wouldn't go onto a dating site, find their perfect match, get really excited about it. And then if it said on the person's profile, let's get married, you wouldn't just go on one date and then agree to get married, even if their profile was perfect, right? You would date for a while. You get to know each other, because we all know on a first date, people are often on their best behavior, right? Or you just, you're not truly yourself yet. And relief practice, by going and working in multiple clinics and seeing what they're really like, you're going to get better in touch with what works for you. And you're also going to start to understand what those clinics are about. And you can decide if that is a good culture fit. I think more hospitals should be hiring relief vets and looking at them as potential, to potentially bring them on as full or part-time employees. Now, make no mistake, there are some relief vets who absolutely do not want to do that, but some of them do. And I think this is a trend that is not going away. I think more and more people are going to use relief practice as a try before you buy approach, and that relief is the new talent acquisition. So if you want to check out Relief Rover, go to reliefrover.com. And if you want to reach me, Cindy Trice, DVM at reliefrover.com. I'm totally an open book. I am happy to answer anyone's questions. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll make it up, or I'll send you to a resource. But no, I'm happy to hear from anyone. If you're just curious about relief practice or what Relief Rover's about, please reach out.
Yes, I encourage you all to reach out to her. Cindy, I found you so warm and welcoming from the first time we connected. Anybody out there that's listening to this, don't hesitate. Just send this woman an email, go on her website, check it out. She is extremely personable. And again, she's been in your shoes. She's on a mission to make things different. And I am so glad that this exists. I was actually thinking it'd be neat if this existed in other feels like for psychotherapists. I would have loved a try before you buy. I think that it's such a wonderful idea to really get to know a company and they get to know me. And are we really a good fit? It's really smart. So it'd be fun to watch your company and how it continues to grow and people joining the community. It's just already is thriving. And so getting the word out, letting people know this exists. If it's a good fit for you, now you know where to go. So Cindy, thanks so much for your time today and for joining me and sharing all of this.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.